Hello, Facebook users, friends, and the world at large. This is Josh Friedman, the Nomadic journalist, coming to you from my home base of Sofia, Bulgaria, where at the moment it is starting to get a little chilly. And because of that, what better of an opportunity to discuss cheap winter getaways. Svetlin says, hey bro, Svetlin, good to hear from you. Funny and fun running into you recently. All right, people are starting to join me on this live broadcast. We're literally just getting started right now. I will be discussing ways to break away from the cold and go to warmer places where, at least if you're like me and you have that Southern Californian blood in you, then you're not too cozy when it gets down to -20 Celsius or 0 Fahrenheit as it does here in Bulgaria at times. In December and January, it has gotten that cold on multiple occasions during my winter stays in Bulgaria, and because of that, I don't like to stay or stick around here very long, particularly in the months of December and January. So I will be discussing a myriad of ways to get away, and a lot of it will have to do with making use of budget airlines, particularly in Europe, a concept that I have discussed recently, both on the Facebook Lives and a webinar that I did last week. This is actually my third Facebook Live in a span of just 7 days. And if you didn't catch the previous two, I suggest that you do. The first one, like this one, was coming to you from right here in Sofia, Bulgaria. And the second one was from Belushi's Pub by London Bridge in London. And in that second one, I ran down 30 lessons that I have learned from traveling to 30 countries in 2017. I'm right now in between trips to London, actually. I just got back from London, and I will be heading back to London in another week. London, I would not say, is a fantastic winter getaway destination. It can be quite cold there, although maybe you could say the draw is that whereas the weather in the summer in London is not particularly appealing, it can often be cloudy, overcast, cool, if not cold, and even rainy. But in the winter, it doesn't get all that cold, so I guess you could consider London as a possible destination this winter. And for that matter, I have yet to really experience the country. I've only been there in passing this year, but I hear Iceland, where it is cold, is a similar destination to keep in mind, in that in the winter it doesn't get super cold in Iceland, from what I understand, and you have northern lights and all kinds of things to check out, hot springs and whatnot. So not this winter, but maybe next winter or sometime thereafter, I will try to make a point to visit Iceland. I'm definitely due to visit the country, not just the airport. Although, if you are coming to Europe from the US, or vice versa, if you're going to the US from Europe, there are some attractive flight routes that go through Iceland. If you change planes in Reykjavik and you use an airline like WOW Air, you can get a very good deal on a flight back and forth between Europe and the US. And in fact, a friend of mine from Los Angeles, who I just visited in London, did exactly that. So that is something to keep in mind. Now, I'm going to delve right into the flights I have booked over the next couple months, and that's going to give you a bit of a perspective of my strategy and some of the opportunities that you have to get away from the cold if you are in a location like Bulgaria, or pretty much anywhere in Central or Northern Europe, or for that matter, even beyond. Some of these strategies that I'm going to be discussing with European budget airlines apply to countries outside of Europe, not only for the destinations that we'll be considering, but for some people trying to get away. For instance, you have a Schengen visa. You could take Wizz Air from Kazakhstan, Astana, Kazakhstan, or Moscow, Russia, fly into Budapest, which is a Wizz Air hub, and then join me when I fly from Budapest to Morocco next month. I'll be discussing Morocco a bit more on this broadcast. I have yet to step foot in Morocco, but I will be paying a visit to Morocco first in December and then second in January. I'll spend a week in southern and central areas of Morocco in December, follow that up with a week in northern Morocco in January. I'm very much looking forward to that, and Morocco is certainly going to be one of my winter getaway locations. Hopefully it's going to be a blast, and it'll provide you a nice little getaway opportunity if you take advantage of some of these flights and deals that I'm going to be discussing coming up. So aside from this follow-up trip I have to London coming up at the end of this month and beginning of next month, I will, like I was just saying, be heading after that to Morocco by way of Budapest. I alluded to this just a moment ago, that Budapest is really a bit of a budget airline transport hub here in Europe, and that budget airline that I have in mind is Wizz Air. Wizz Air is my favorite budget airline. I have completely lost track of how many Wizz Air flights I've taken this year. At least 10, maybe 15. I'm not sure. Okay, so I'm getting comments. I am going to make a point to respond to the comments this time. I kind of botched that last time. Please leave not only your comments, but your questions. Kevin says, day game in Morocco, yay. Kevin, I'll get back to you on what I find in Morocco, both in terms of culture, and maybe I do meet some lovely ladies there. I don't know, but we shall see. Will says, hey, buddy. Will, hey, buddy, to you too. Thank you again for joining me on this broadcast. You have been a recurring face on these Facebook Lives that I've been doing over the past week. So, Will, thank you very much for joining me. It's a pleasure to have you here. Katya, hi. Elena, everyone else who's joining, thank you very much for joining. Please feel free to leave not only your comments, but your questions. So, in the middle of next month, I will head from Sofia to Budapest, not to stick around very long at all in Budapest, albeit I do love the city. I'm very fond of it, and I'm spending an increasing amount of time there nowadays, probably because of all the Wizz Air flights I'm taking. Wizz Air is a Hungarian airline, so go figure that they've got a bunch of great routes and very attractive options coming and going from Budapest. So I'm going to fly from Sofia to Budapest middle of next month, then fly from Budapest to Agadir, Morocco, where I believe I have an acquaintance or a Facebook friend waiting for me. I actually met him, of all places, in Budapest. Was it last month? I forget. But that was a point I kind of harped on last time when I was coming to you live from the pub in London, that if you reach out to a lot of these people that you meet along the ways, wherever you may be, you're going to develop connections that will come in handy. You never know when. Like, for instance, I met this Moroccan guy in a hostel in Budapest, and right away he invited me to stay at his home in Agadir in Morocco. So I will probably be making use of that before I most certainly will head a little north to check out Marrakesh, which has gotten rave reviews from expats and digital nomads. I'm very curious to see what the kind of life and lifestyle is in this very popular Moroccan destination. I'll be heading, I don't know if I'll head to Casablanca. I'd like to check it out. I haven't heard very rave reviews from travel guides and gurus, but I guess if nothing else, it's just interesting to say that you've been to Casablanca. So I'll be spending a week in Morocco, and then I have pretty much the second half of December open, and I will be flying back to Budapest from Morocco, and I haven't considered yet What's Kevin, Will comments, how many years have you been traveling for? Well, Will, as I'm sure you're aware now, I'm based in Sofia, Bulgaria. It's kind of hard for me to say that Sofia is my home, even though I'm really coming to you from my home at the moment. But I've been based in Sofia for more than 3 years now. And on average, I've been traveling to 20 countries a year over the last 3 years. And on average, I've probably been spending 7, maybe 8 months a year on the road. And the rest of the time, or most of the rest of the time, I did head back to California for a few weeks this year. Most of the rest of the time in Sofia, Bulgaria. So I hope that answers your question. Kevin says, please talk about the best places in Europe in the spring, cheapest locations, and good for day game. I think Kevin is interested in meeting ladies. I can't blame him. I am too. I'm a single guy at the moment. I would rent an apartment through Airbnb. No need for luxury, but no dumb as well. Kevin, this broadcast is specifically about winter getaway destinations. If I have time at the end, I will definitely get into spring locations, but I really have a different outlook for spring versus winter, and we're going to try to hit on a bunch of destinations that I would consider to be very good destinations for a getaway from the European winter, and doing so at a very low cost. If I can, afterward, I will try to address some of the spring destinations, and there could be some overlap. So before I get back to my schedule, what I'm really looking at is the southern periphery of Europe. So as you probably are well aware by now, or if you haven't turned into the broadcast, I love Wizz Air and Ryanair. Wizz Air and Ryanair are my de facto airlines, and basically my de facto choices for means of transportation. And when I look at their routes, come wintertime, I see very attractive destinations both on the southern edges of Europe, and that includes in the Mediterranean Sea, which I would look to Malta for sure. Last January, I made a break and went to Malta for a week. And Cyprus, which I've yet to go to, and I'm very much looking forward to visiting Cyprus. Maybe I'll hit that in February, I don't know, but it doesn't look like I'll be hitting Cyprus over the next 2 months. But yes, looking to the southern edge of Europe, I will be paying a visit to Spain next month, Barcelona in particular, which serves me well for news purposes, as obviously there's a lot of news coming out of Barcelona and Catalonia nowadays, but also not only is it a southern location within Europe and should have a fairly decent temperature when I arrive in January, but it's also a launch pad to Morocco and some other destinations. In fact, using Ryanair, you could really fly, I mean, through other airlines that they connect with, you could actually fly from Spain, primarily from Madrid, to pretty much all over the world, and particularly to Latin America. That could be something to consider, although I haven't seen as attractive prices on those routes. But so yeah, the countries that I would really zoom in on, if you want to make use of these 10 and 20 euro flights that I've been talking about at length over the past week, those countries would certainly include Malta and Cyprus in the Mediterranean Sea, as I just mentioned, Morocco, where I'm heading both in December and January, and I would throw in there Israel. There are numerous flight routes right now going back and forth between not only Tel Aviv and a whole host of locations in Europe, but Eilat. Eilat is the southern resort city in Israel on the Red Sea. A very lovely destination, I would say, for this time of year, if you're looking for a place that's going to be a little warmer, that you can get away. And Eilat is also right next to Egypt, if you want to cross in there, and Eilat is right next to Jordan. I have taken the route from Eilat into Jordan to Petra, which is one of the most incredible, if not the most incredible place I have ever visited, just something to consider. So I'm seeing cheap flights from a bunch of locations in Europe by way of both Wizz Air and Ryanair to both Tel Aviv and a lot in Israel. In fact, I found one, I'm checking my notes. Yes, in December, I found a $36 round trip flight. This is Wizz Air, Prague a lot. I would jump on that if you have a Wizz Air membership, a Wizz Air discount club membership, which is something that I really highly recommend. It costs you 30 euros for a year, and once you pay those 30 euros, you have almost unlimited access to these 10 euro flights if you are astute and you familiarize yourself with the Wizz Air routes and you book when something comes up and you got a hunch that you got to go somewhere. All right, I'm getting comments. Osman says Lithuania is too cold at this stage. Wow, I'm freezing outside. Osman, if I were in Lithuania right now, I would just get out. I don't know how cold it is. I can imagine it's going to get much colder. On a previous Facebook Live, I was discussing how Vilnius, Lithuania is a nice little attractive destination. To me, at least I felt like I was very well welcomed there, and I had a fun time, but I would not recommend going to Lithuania at this time of year. And Osman, regarding Lithuania, there are really a host of opportunities to use Wizz Air, and I'm not so sure about Ryanair. I'd have to research that. I've flown Wizz Air in and out of Vilnius. There aren't the most attractive Wizz Air flights from Vilnius, at least from what I've seen. I need to double check. I don't have every route memorized. I haven't seen the most attractive flights from Vilnius to these winter getaway destinations, but you can use a strategy that I call stacking flights. So with Wizz Air and Ryanair, some of you might be aware that you don't book flights with connections. You don't have the option to book flights with connections. But in reality, you do. What I do is I stack flights. So I'll jump into my January schedule right now. The first trip I have scheduled for January is I'm going to spend a long weekend in Santorini, Greece. It'll be my first trip to the Greek islands. I'm very much looking forward to it. Since it's going to be winter, it's going to be very cheap, at least by Greek island standards. Yet there are an increasing number of flights there in the off season, so I don't expect it to be completely dead, and the weather should be much more to my liking than Bulgaria, at least. Now, there are no direct flights by Wizz Air or Ryanair, or these cheap budget airlines, from Sofia to Santorini. However, there are direct flights, extremely cheap, from Sofia to Athens, and at this time of year, flights extremely cheap from Athens to Santorini. So I did what I call stack flights. I found flights that match up so that I can basically have connecting flights in Athens, round trip Sofia, Santorini. Last January, I spent a few days in Athens, and I think it's really a great place to kick off the year. You really can't get a lot more historic than that, and I absolutely love visiting Athens, spending time at the Acropolis, and just pondering all of the philosophy and history and whatnot, but I'm not going to get into that now, and I'm skipping Athens this winter. But you can really use this strategy of stacking these budget airline flights to your advantage. So if you're in Vilnius and you want to get out of the cold and you can't fly from Vilnius to Santorini or Vilnius to Malta, and don't quote me on that because maybe you can. I don't have all the Vilnius routes memorized, but you could fly to some hub. Maybe that's Sofia, maybe it's Budapest, and you can just stack flights that match up, and there you can have an easy, cheap round trip from Vilnius or some other Northern European destination to one of these Southern Europe or beyond getaways. And as I mentioned before, when going outside of Europe for one of these winter getaways using these budget airlines that I am so fond of, I would most certainly look to Morocco, and I would certainly look to Israel. And now you have the option of not only flying into Tel Aviv, but flying directly into a lot. And as I mentioned earlier, if you have a Wizz Air discount club membership, which is only $30 or 30 euros, excuse me, there is a December round trip flight, Prague a lot, for just $36. You might want to look into that. And if you can't find it, contact me. I'll point you to it. And since I'm discussing some of these individual deals that I've already hunted down, an attractive one on December 14th, if you have this Wizz Air discount club membership, on December 14th, you could fly from Budapest to Malta for a whopping total of $12. And actually, if you convert the Hungarian forints directly, it's slightly below $12. As I mentioned a little bit ago, I did go to Malta last January. The weather was on and off. I would say during the day, it was from about 50 to 60 degrees Fahrenheit, 10 to 15 degrees Celsius, with rain on and off. And the locals were saying that was really bad weather. So as you can see, Malta could be a very attractive winter getaway, and it can be very cheap if you're coming from a European destination on one of these budget airlines. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I'm harping a lot on Wizz Air right now, but Ryanair's got a sale all week. They've got this Black Friday sale that's going on all week. We're in the middle of the week now, day 3 of it, and they've got kind of different special offers on different days, but there are an incredible number of extremely cheap flights to lots of very attractive destinations. And if you go on Ryanair and book sooner rather than later, you could score one of these flights for as cheap as €5 from major European destination to major European destination. Will, thank you for the question. Will asks, should I get a Wizz Air account? Will, as far as I understand, you are not living in Europe, and feel free to type in if you have any plans to be coming to Europe right now. I would not at the moment recommend that you do get a Wizz Air account or a discount club membership, but if you do have plans to come to Europe and to say, rather than spend $1,000 or more on getting the Eurail pass, which could be a lot of fun, but also comes at a steep price, if you do want to come spend a summer in Europe, or if you want a month in Europe and you want to bounce around on cheap flights, then in that case, it could pay to have a Wizz Air membership for just using it for a month. It could pay off even in that little amount of time. Now, if you're, say, in the US like Will is, I'm not focusing on this, and if I were back in Southern California right now, I wouldn't be freaking out about winter coming like I am in Bulgaria, where my knuckles and hands are already starting to bleed. They haven't yet, but they did while I was filming out in Astana, Kazakhstan a few weeks back. Hi, Emmanuel. Hi, Sabor. Welcome to everyone who's joining me. As I have been saying, please leave your comments and questions. We're focused on cheap winter getaways, particularly from Europe and to the southern periphery of Europe, which includes destinations like Malta and Cyprus in the Mediterranean, as well as a little outside of Europe, and I'm highly recommending Morocco and Israel at the moment. So back to the US, if you're in the US right now, and that could mean you're up in the north in freezing cold Montana or Minnesota, you're down in LA and Miami, so it could mean much different things. But if you are looking for a cheap winter getaway, there are budget airlines that will fly you down to Mexico cheap. I have not used those, and I recommend you probe that yourself. But there are certainly attractive winter getaway destinations from the US. And heading back to Will's question of of the Wizz Air Discount Club. Well, Will, I recommend you come out to Europe and see this for yourself. As a fellow American, I would say that I am dumbfounded by the cheap travel opportunities that exist in Europe. As far as I've seen, there really is not something similar else. Wizz Air priority boarding, be among the first aboard, Kevin says. Welcome Pavel, welcome Eljana, welcome Remy. Frankly, Kevin, I don't care whatsoever about priority boarding. Last night, or no, it was the night before, I was boarding the flight, which I believe someone who joined this chat a little bit ago was on. I was boarding the flight back from Sofia to London, and I'm sitting there typing on my computer, cranking out articles until the very last moment till I need to run to board the flight. I don't care about priority boarding. I don't care a whole lot about the comfort and service on these flights. This is a nomadic journalism webinar, and I might throw in a thing or two about journalism. Well, as a nomadic journalist, I like to make use of not only my flights, but my ground transportation as well for pretty much two things: sleeping and working. So comfort is not a priority of mine. But with that said, I wouldn't knock these budget airlines as being terribly uncomfortable. I sleep on the planes perfectly fine so long as I'm not stuck in a middle seat, which somehow I seem to manage to avoid a lot. Will says, I'll come out to Europe. Will, all the power to you. I'd love to see you out here. And please hit me up with any and all the questions you have about travel to and from Europe, and of course travel within Europe. And if you are traveling within Europe, I highly recommend making use of these cheap flights. Kevin asks, don't you think priority boarding is silly? I think I just answered that question. I'm a member of their discount club, not for priority boarding, totally for the discounts. That's it. Okay, so I've already discussed several of the flights I have booked coming up over the next couple of months. December and January, I plan to be getting out of the cold here in Bulgaria by heading to Morocco, both in December and January, heading to Santorini, Greece. That sounds so exciting. Next month, or rather that will be in January, and I'll be using Barcelona as my launch pad to Morocco. And Barcelona, I guess, will serve two purposes, or for that matter, for me, it's going to kill not two, but three birds with one stone, in that Barcelona is a very attractive news destination at the moment. And I try to look and anticipate some of not only the breaking news that could be coming up in the future, but opportunities for me to produce reports at the destinations I'm going. So from a nomadic journalism perspective, Barcelona will serve me three purposes when I visit there in January. One, I get to do some reporting on the Catalonia independence situation. Two, it gets me out of the cold. At least it should be at least fairly warmer there than in Bulgaria at the time. And three, it's my launch pad to Morocco, and I've found some very cheap flights from Barcelona to Morocco. And it's not just to one destination. I've seen on Wizz Air, you can fly from Barcelona to several destinations in Morocco. Kevin says, just get a blow-up neck pillow for sleeping. Those work. I usually manage to fall asleep without them, but probably for most people, you'll be better off with the neck pillow than without the neck pillow. So I've been discussing some strategies for how to really make use of some of these cheap budget airline flights to get you to these winter getaway destinations on the southern periphery of Europe. And one that I haven't discussed, I discussed the concept of stacking flights, which I am doing both with my trip to Santorini via Athens and my trip to Morocco via Barcelona. Well, I also like to discuss this concept that I used at least last year for my winter getaway, and creating a triangular trip. That wasn't a very good triangle, was it? That was maybe a diamond. I guess this would be a better triangle, but hand motions aren't my specialty. So here's what I mean by that. Last winter, I found a very cheap flight from Sofia to Malta, Wizz Air, go figure. And I found super cheap, I believe they were both Ryanair flights, Malta to Athens and Athens to Sofia. So that's an example of a triangular trip. I didn't see a super cheap round trip, Sofia, Malta, but I searched around and I realized that I can go from point A to point B to point C to point A, and that's what I would call a triangular trip. And it's a way to save money and go to another destination. And in this case, you could be adding destinations on the southern periphery of Europe to your excursion by building some sort of a triangular trip. Sabor says, hello, dear Josh. Welcome to Facebook Live. Hello, Sabor. Welcome to my Facebook Live broadcast. Thank you for joining me. Another destination that I'm going to hit on as a possibility, it's not really, I would say, on the southern periphery of Europe, but it is a very attractive winter destination, I would say. And that out of left field, can anyone take a guess? Someone throw out a destination that they think I might bring up that's somewhere in kind of the southern Europe area, but you wouldn't think of. All right, no takers. Here it is. Dubrovnik. Yes. Now, you're probably not going to find a bunch of cheap flights in and out of Dubrovnik, although I do see that Wizz Air flies in and out of nearby Split. We got a Morocco and Malta. I've already hit on Morocco and Malta. I've talked about Morocco and Malta so much already. Here's why Dubrovnik would be a very attractive destination in December or January. There are a few reasons. One, Dubrovnik, because of its location on the Adriatic, is significantly warmer than most of the Balkans at this time of year. So the Balkans is a very mountainous region, and that's one of the main reasons why I need to get the heck out of Sofia, Bulgaria at this time of year. But Dubrovnik is down there on the Adriatic Sea. Different climate. It's, I think it should be somewhere around 10, 15 degrees Celsius on average in these upcoming months. If someone has better info on that, then you can correct me and throw that in there in the chat. So the weather is decent, if not good, for the region at this time of year. And then on top of that, there are a couple huge advantages to visiting Dubrovnik in the off season. If you go to Dubrovnik in tourist season, it is absolutely mobbed. You try to walk around the old town in Dubrovnik, which is oh so scenic of a location, historic, beautiful. If you're obsessed with Game of Thrones, like a lot of people are, then you can go there for that. But I'm interested in the history, everything from the, is it the Ragusa? I'm botching the name of that state that existed there. Someone correct me if I got that wrong. But anything from that to the breakup of Yugoslavia when Dubrovnik was being shelled and on fire. And then on top of that, so the city, the old town is absolutely gorgeous. The views are stunning. But if you go there in the tourist season, which really in Dubrovnik, I don't know so much about May, but it definitely goes through September. I mean, you can be bumper to bumper just walking around the old town in Dubrovnik all the way through mid to late September. July and August, it's rough. June crowded, and I'm not so sure about May, but I would guess even in May, Dubrovnik's already getting people in from these cruises. These cruises just unload people and people and people in Dubrovnik during tourist season. And the prices are astronomical. If you're a budget traveler, then the reality is if you go to Dubrovnik during the tourist season, you're going to get packed into one of these little pensions where they've got 5-10 people to a room, and they're still going to charge you 10, 15, 20 euros to basically stack bodies on top of one another. But when I scan Dubrovnik on Airbnb in the winter months, like December and January, I am seeing, at least last year, I don't know about this year, I'll have to double check, but I wouldn't expect it's too different. I am seeing beautiful homes overlooking the sea, large homes, like 2, 3, 4, or even 5 bedrooms with beautiful balconies overlooking the old town, the Adriatic Sea. I was seeing those going for 25, 30 bucks a night in December and January. Those are going for, I would say, at the very cheapest, $150 a night in the heart of tourist season. So Dubrovnik might be an interesting destination to consider as a wild card winter getaway in Europe. And if you hit up Dubrovnik, then you can hit up some neighboring spots along the Adriatic. Kotor in Montenegro, which is very close, is stunning. It's incredibly beautiful. Also with the Hold Town, you got the bay, and you got the hiking up there with the incredible views. And then going a little north up the Adriatic coast, you can hit up Split and other locations in Croatia. I mentioned Split because I do know there are some budget airline flights in and out of there. Not many, but it is possible. So to recap these strategies for winter getaways, particularly from Europe, Kevin says, I've seen luxury villas in Croatia for 90 euros per month in the winter. Crazy. Kevin, you're right on. I mean, that's what I'm saying. Croatia is mobbed in the summer, just mobbed, particularly Dubrovnik, but Croatia in general is mobbed. And in the winter, it's an interesting place to consider because not only do you get these super cheap rates, but you also have decent climate, at least down in Dubrovnik. And good job, Kevin. Yeah, good job. Will points out, good job, Kevin. But yeah. So I just hit on that. There are attractive reasons to consider Dubrovnik as a wild card destination. Now, if you're thinking beyond this, and Wizz Air and Ryanair and these European budget airlines do not suffice for you, then I'm going to talk about some more exotic ways that you could book and or finance a winter getaway. And it could be in around the southern periphery of Europe, or it could be somewhere entirely else. And I'm going to start by just a little general booking strategy, which a very popular site that is known throughout the travel community is Skyscanner. Skyscanner allows you to compare airfares for all these different destinations. And a key strategic point when using Skyscanner is flexibility. If you can be flexible with your booking date and the locations, both your departure and destination locations, if you can have some flexibility, then you can really find some amazing deals with Skyscanner. It also helps to book on a Tuesday, to fly on a Tuesday or in the middle of the week, because it tends to be cheapest on a Tuesday and cheaper in the middle of the week than if you fly on the weekends. And likewise, with the holidays coming up, the prices are higher right around New Year's and Christmas. But even if you're booking, say, in between New Year's and Christmas, say you're booking a flight that departs in between New Year's and Christmas, and then you're going to leave a few days or so into January, you could still get a pretty good deal, and you end up having your holiday getaway nonetheless. So Skyscanner, there are a bunch of tricks to the trade. is obviously an option for you to book flights all over the world. Now, taking a step away from the actual booking and booking strategies, I'm going to get a little more exotic here. There's been a lot of talk lately about cryptocurrencies. I don't know if you've noticed, but the price of Bitcoin and some other cryptocurrencies is skyrocketing. Last time I checked, it was at 8,000 something. If someone wants to put the price in the chat right now, that could be of help. It's moving too fast for me to keep track of. Well, as I mentioned in my last broadcast from London, if you are holding rising currency like Bitcoin, you can essentially be traveling for free, because as you travel, the value of your money is increasing and the prices you pay are not. And what Will says, I love the Facebook Lives, always learn a lot from the very talented Josh. Thank you very much, Will. An option on top of merely holding Bitcoin or cryptocurrency is getting one of these, which I've yet to do. I've talked about it. I've yet to do it. Someone should get on me about that. Is getting a hold of one of these Bitcoin debit cards. They are growing in numbers. There are a lot of them out there. Some of them have pretty good reviews. And what you do is you load Bitcoin into the debit card, and then you just go around swiping it like a debit card. So if the price of Bitcoin is going up over the course of your travels, you can be swiping and swiping and actually gaining money, not losing money. It's something that's a little exotic, but it's something worth considering. And I'm sure cryptocurrencies are going to factor more and more into these discussions over the coming months and years. And for that matter, I'll throw in another something, since after all, this is supposed to be a nomadic journalism Facebook Live or webinar. There is a rather new, it's now more than a year old, blockchain-backed social media platform. It's called Steemit, STEEMIT.com. And it actually pays you in cryptocurrency. Will says he's going to get one of those debit cards. It's very worth considering, although I highly recommend that you do your research and get educated about cryptocurrencies. So this Steemit site actually pays you in cryptocurrency for the posts that you make based on other people's response, how much they like them, and whether powerful people on the site like the content you're producing. There are some people who at least at one point were traveling the world just off the money they were making by travel blogging on Steemit. It's another exotic cryptocurrency related opportunity, but something to consider both from a journalistic perspective and a travel perspective, that you could get on this new blockchain-backed social media platform and be cranking out blogs and actually vlogs, because there's now a Steemit attached alternative to YouTube called DTube. So if you post your videos on DTube, unfortunately, there are a lot of technical glitches with it, but if you post your videos on DTube, you could be travel vlogging, and possibly that could be paying your way as you go. Something worth considering. Also, of course, credit card miles. If you get one of these quality rewards cards like the Chase Sapphire, I hear great things about it. I still haven't gotten my hands on one. I really need to. If you get hold of credit card miles, that could finance a very luxurious, or if not luxurious, trip, a very long or expensive flight to some more attractive winter getaway. Also, if you're looking for a way to make some money or drive down the costs of your stay during your winter getaway, you could consider house sitting. As I've mentioned before, there are these house sitting platforms and communities. You sign up, you get verified, and then you could be living, or at least based for a little while, in these beautiful homes all over the world and not paying a penny to be doing so, and making money while you're sitting in these luxurious homes. And something that I would also highly recommend, not only for the nomadic journalists out there, but for all the travelers and aspiring travelers out there, is that consider using this winter getaway as an opportunity to make a foray into remote work. For those of you who are not familiar with the concept of remote work, it basically means that you can take a job or other jobs that you manage to receive, take them from one location where you would be based and go around the world with them. So as a journalist, I am actually working remotely. I'm traveling around and around, and obviously I am on the ground often doing reporting at certain destinations, but all of the typing and and for that matter pretty much the majority of my work that I'm doing is on the computer, and that's remote work. Now, if you are trying to break out of whatever sort of cocoon you're stuck in, one great way to do that is to take your job and convince your boss or the company you work for to let you work remotely. And one way to maybe get started in that, or to start convincing them that you could do that, would be to suggest that on this winter getaway, especially if it's during the holiday times when people are taking off work in general, that you work from Morocco, or you work from Eilat, Israel, or you work from Cyprus, or you work from Malta, and spend a week working remotely and prove to your boss or your organization that you can get the job done irregardless of your location. And that could be a huge step in your career and your life in helping you go nomadic or become an expat or live whatever kind of life of travel and international living that you so desire. So that would be something worth considering. Try weaving remote work into your winter getaway. I see that we've already surpassed 45 minutes on this broadcast. Time flies. I guess you can see I get fairly excited talking about travel and international living and remote work and nomadic journalism. Please let me hear your questions. Whatever questions you have remaining, I will address those promptly, hopefully right now. Anything having to do with travel, international living, journalism, nomadic journalism, or if you're at all interested in the course that I'm about to kick off, then please have a look at, I'm going to throw the link in the chat right now. Please venture over to my nomadicjournalism.com website, where you can take a look at this course that's going to begin next week. It is called the Nomadic Journalism Adventure Igniter. There are already several people enrolled in the course. I've begun having calls with them, and I had a couple hour-long calls today with two of the students in the course. We talked all things travel, budget travel, journalism, and seizing opportunities in this new media environment, which includes Steemit. A couple people in the course are very excited about getting onto Steemit and making use of Steemit, making use possibly of cryptocurrencies as a way of financing journalism. There are several, if not many now, journalists out there in the new media who have really revitalized their careers thanks to cryptocurrency and platforms like Steemit. That's something that will be discussed on this Nomadic Journalism Adventure Igniter course. Now, the point of this course is really to get you launched on a nomadic journalism excursion. I don't want to see you stuck in your cocoon. I want to see you out in the world, venturing off into new countries and producing media content that is anything from serious reporting to blogging or vlogging or anything that is of brand building nature. In this course, I'm working with people both on serious journalism and on brand building content. And whether you fall on either end of the spectrum or both or anything in between, I would love to have you as a part of this course that is kicking off next week. And right now, the Nomadic Journalism Adventure Igniter is back on sale. There was a webinar sale last week. That ended, but it is now back on sale for Black Friday. Through Black Friday, this course, a 6-week course in which we will delve deep into all things journalism and travel, and you'll be receiving a lot of feedback from me and be working with me one-on-one a bit, as well as participating in this private Facebook group that we have, which includes my father, who, by the way, has 50, I shouldn't say that, but yeah, 5 decades of experience in the field of journalism. If you would like to join this course, it is yours right now during this Black Friday sale for just $29.99. That's it, $29.99, $29.99. I guess if you really wanted to pay me 99 Bulgarian studinki, then go right ahead. I'll set things up so that you can do so. Or if you would like to take the leap and pay for this course in cryptocurrency, you could do so. I will take a $29.99 payment in Bitcoin, which last time I checked was minuscule. Someone has already purchased this course in Bitcoin. I will check that figure right now. In Bitcoin at the moment, oh, come on, help me out. Google's not helping me out. Let's just go with 30. So according to Google at the moment, which someone, if you would check it on CoinGecko, I'd be a little more comfortable with that, or on some of the other exchanges. So yeah, on Google right now, I'm seeing that the Nomadic Journalism Adventure Igniter, a first of its kind online nomadic journalism 6-week immersion course, costs in Bitcoin only 0.00369. So if you would like to pay for this course in Bitcoin, you can ask me for my address. I'm getting a cryptocurrency payment system set up on the website very shortly, but for now, ask me for my Bitcoin address, and you can send me 0.00369 plus the minuscule transaction fee. Let's hope it's minuscule. And you will be enrolled in this Nomadic Journalism Adventure Igniter course that I am so excited about, that is getting underway next week. And we're already getting rolling with calls. I had a couple hour-long calls today, very productive. I'm very excited about the students with whom I am working. Any more questions before I wrap up this Facebook Live Escape the Cold with Cheap Winter Getaways? Do we have any more questions about cheap winter getaways, about travel in general, about international living, nomadic lifestyle, nomadic journalism, or journalism in general? And since I'm seeing none, I will very quickly go back to Kevin's question, which I'm not going to address in depth right now, as we're coming up on nearly an hour on this broadcast. But yes, Kevin at some point was asking about great destinations in the spring in Europe. Now that gets me excited. That gets me far more excited than the winter getaways, because spring, I would say late spring is really the season in Europe, as sometimes even in early to mid-spring, it can still be cold, if not snowing. It snowed very briefly, I know, in Bulgaria last April. It snowed in Ukraine, and I can imagine if it snowed in those two countries, granted very briefly, then it probably did snow in a variety of European countries last April, albeit for most of the month. I think the weather, it was probably back and forth, but you can figure on about 60 Fahrenheit, 20 degree, or 15 Celsius to about 20 Celsius, 70 Fahrenheit, stuff like that. But yeah, late spring gets me really excited. Here are some of my favorite spring destinations in Europe. I would certainly, as I mentioned last time, I love Ukraine. It is incredibly cheap. There are multiple cities we're spending time in. Odessa is a whole lot of fun at any time of year in which there is decent weather. You can go to the beach. The city has got a really special, eclectic character going back centuries, really. There are all kinds of people, an eclectic ethnic mix there. And on top of that, well, if you're a young man, there are incredibly beautiful women there. And there's the sea, like I mentioned. Kiev is probably the best bang for the buck in terms of large European capitals. I think there are around 3 million people there, yet it is so cheap, and there are plenty of things to do. And from a journalistic perspective, there are plenty of things to cover in Kiev. So for a spring destination, I would certainly look toward Ukraine. I would look toward Prague. If you want to party and really have fun, Prague is pretty much the party capital now of Europe, and it's right in the heart of Europe, and you can venture off to other destinations very easily, like Budapest. Budapest is lovely, beautiful, a lot of fun. Really, almost everything in Europe is great to go to in late spring. It's right before all the tourists pour in, and the weather is generally good. I would say check out the Balkans, very cheap, great food, great culture, lots of history. Maybe today the Balkans are the talk that Radko Mladic is the news in the Balkans today. But ignore that. You're probably not going to have to hear much about war crimes when you're coming here in the spring, although there are always clashes of some sort popping up in the Balkans, if not just bitter arguments. Western Europe, of course, it's going to be a lot more expensive, but Paris is very lovely in the spring, although I was there in May, and it was surprisingly cold this year in May, so that might be worth taking into account that maybe Paris isn't that great of a spring destination, but then again, in the summer, it's absolutely mobbed, so I would hit Paris before the tourists pour in. So in Western Europe, maybe look to Paris. In Southern Europe, Italy, Greece, of course, they're great. You'll get the sun, you'll get great weather in the spring, and lots of great places to see. I hope this answers your question enough. Kevin, you and I can discuss this more, and I can discuss European spring destinations more on another broadcast. I hope you all learned something of use from this broadcast, this Facebook Live, that was focused, at least for the first half, on making use of budget airlines and other resources in order to escape the cold and reach a cheap European, or not necessarily European, but cheap winter getaway. And we discussed a lot more on the second half of this broadcast. If you missed it, you can catch it on the replay, both on Facebook and possibly I'll be uploading it to YouTube. And we discussed everything from how to strategically book flights all around the world using Skyscanner to how to make use of cryptocurrencies and blockchain-backed social media to help fund your travels. So I hope there was something in this for everyone. Thank you very much for joining me. I am coming to you from my home base of Sofia, Bulgaria, which I do not hope to be sticking around in too long, as it's going to get very cold. And I don't know what my next destination for Facebook Live will be, but I expect to be seeing you in the near future and speaking with you at length. Once again, the Nomadic Journalism Adventure Igniter is on sale right now for Black Friday, through Black Friday, for just $29.99. The course kicks off next week. I am very much looking forward to this first of its kind Nomadic Journalism course. You've got a chance to sign up for it at an extremely cheap price. The link to the course is in the chat, and if you don't see that, you can go to nomadicjournalism.com/store. That's a wrap. Thank you very much once again for joining me, and see you soon. And I hope to see you all out in the world somewhere. Stay warm, keep things fresh, and go out there and travel and have a great time. Ciao for now.